Welcome back to The Line. Our final topic this week is rising rents in Albuquerque. A lot of people talk about how New Mexico is in finger quotes, a cheap place to live, but a more nuanced view might be that it's a cheap place to buy a home, but maybe not necessarily a cheap place to be a renter. And Serge, tenants' rights is an important issue to you, and I really appreciate all you've brought to our understanding here at New Mexico PBS about this issue. What do you make about this report in New Mexico Business First about the rising rents? It doesn't seem like it's a ton as a percentage, but there's another story I'm sensing underneath that, isn't there? We can't look at it in our own situation and say, oh, it's not so bad, you know?
I mean, that's the thing. If you look at, a 1.7% increase in rent for someone who is barely paying the rent as it is, and often having trouble because of family emergencies or other situations, unexpected, raising that just a little bit, right, times 12 months becomes a big issue. And when you think of it in terms of a minimum wage job, that's a couple more hours that then go to rent and not food, not utilities, not healthcare, not clothing.
That's right.
And I think, we, by increasing rental prices, it keeps our homeless population from ever maybe accessing the rental market, but also will cause people who are still in the market to be pushed out and or to have to make really tough decisions.
That's right. So whatever work we're doing with the homeless on one end, the pipeline's being filled on the other end with folks who can't afford rent. It's pretty simple.
Exactly, and as more people are unable to afford rent, right, our subsidized housing becomes more precious, and we don't have a huge stock of that to begin with, and years and years and years to grow that.
Yeah.
So I think it is, to me, troubling to see the rent increasing that way. It's very quickly because of what I see, what I anticipate will be the effect on folks who are struggling to pay the rent now.
That's a good point. Dee, I live downtown. You get to talk to a lot of folks downtown, and anecdotally, the rent situation's been going up for a while now.
Yeah.
If you really are looking at it the last year or so, you can really see it going up, and you hear about folks leaving a certain place and the rent's going up 200%, like overnight. It's crazy that way. And your sense of this story as well, it's a difficulty in a lot of
Well, God forbid that you should be evicted. And then, because I just went to the city's website today, you can't even get on a waiting list for public housing. Immediately. So it's, it's very difficult. But my heart really goes, and since you mentioned downtown, my heart goes out to the millennials. Because it's the millennials that are hit by this hardest. Millennials were hit by the 2008 recession, and they were not able to accumulate enough assets to even think about buying a home. And also, many of them are caught in jobs that don't pay even enough income to allow them to just allocate a quarter or a third of their income for housing and rent.
That's right.
They can't do that, so they're falling further and further behind, getting into payday lending and other situations where it makes it more difficult to get out. It's just, the whole thing to me just brought up the shrinking of our middle class again. And how you, even to afford $852 a month, you really have to have two breadwinners.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. Laura, Dee mentioned the old saw that a third of your income or less should be for keeping a roof over your head. But we have a lot of folks here paying way more than that to keep a roof over their head. And so we've got this weird squeeze that Dee Dee's mentioning that, we're not, if you're middle class here, what does that really mean? If you can't afford a certain level, what you can afford is not necessarily all that great either. Do you know what I mean? So you're really kind of stuck in a tough place here. For students, everybody else, it's a hard thing in Albuquerque right now.
It is, and I think what's also unfortunate is that we don't have rising salaries or even job opportunities to complement that rise in rent. So there's scarcity. We still haven't recovered the way other states have from the recession, and that means that basically our expenses, our living expenses, are outpacing the opportunities that are here in the state and in urban areas and even in our rural areas. So it's very troubling for a lot of people, and I do think that the working poor are being hit the most because they don't have the opportunities to. There are less opportunities for them in terms of social programs or other programs that are out there that could help support them, and so I think that you are seeing people who have to get creative with their living situation, which add additional, I think, issues and problems and challenges for
That's
them
right. That's
and their
right.
children.
You know, on the other side of it, for landlords, take their position for a quick second. They have not been able to raise rents for a bit of time now because of our recession, because of a lot of different things here that's happened. You can't blame people for wanting to catch up a little bit because their expenses have gone up. But these things have to sort of go hand in hand with what Laurel's talking about. You know, rising incomes with rising rents. How long can this go? You've got this disparity. That's the troubling part here.
Yeah, I mean, it's all cyclical.
Right.
I remember sitting around the table, talking about, low housing prices and, rents that were just, the rental industry was just totally dying and stuff. So yeah, there's an ebb and flow. I think Laura brings up some great points about the economy just really has not kept pace like we've seen in other areas to really kind of see a lot of worker pay increases.
Right.
So there are a lot of challenges for the dollar today. Especially with convenience stores and different drive-through restaurants, the latest brewery, and so there are a lot more financial decisions today. And I think to the millennial point, and even just for everyone in general, I think we need to have just a recap of how do we make ends meet in a very positive way.
Yeah.
And those are decisions that I go through as well. But when we take a look at the current state of the economic affairs, and even Steve Sinovic with the Albuquerque Journal this week had a very insightful article saying that perhaps the recession is going to be coming back on a national level, and here in New Mexico we're going, oh crud, we're already coming back and stuff.
Right. That's
so
right.
I think that if now is really the time to just buckle down and say it is time to really get our financial houses in order.
That's a good point there. Evictions, you work with this as well. This is another thing that goes on unseen from the general public. Give us a sense of the eviction problem here in New Mexico, here in Albuquerque as well.
Right. Well, I mean, tenants have very little protection in terms of helping them stay in their apartments. And I understand landlords, they want to pay their mortgages, pay their bills, whatever. But they're in a situation where if you fall behind even a little bit in rent, the landlord can almost immediately get you down to the Metro Court, and eviction cases last 3-4 minutes. Right?
No
and
kidding.
People, they go through 20 a morning in some of the courtrooms, right?
Oh boy.
And that it reflects sort of the rights of tenants versus the rights of landlords. It reflects how quickly we say, if you're not paying, you need to get out. And I think it also reflects legislative and sort of social misunderstanding of what happens when you get evicted, because it's not just, you have to tell the post office where you've moved to, right? You have to find a new place, a new way to get to work. You have to
That's right.
find your kids possibly a new school. And no one ever, when they get evicted, moves to a better apartment. So they're going down and down, and people are choosing between live in a terrible place or as the rents go up, right?
Right.
Skimp on other things and other aspects of their lives.
If you would, just for a quick second, landlord rights as well. How does that work inside it? I hear your point about, because there's a thing out there that says, anecdotally, that it's the other way around completely. If you talk to landlords, they say, this is a tenants' rights state. Do you know what I mean? It's all about tenants' rights, and you hear this a lot from landlords.
I mean, every landlord will tell you about the worst tenant they ever have,
Right.
And they are out there. But when you talk about the tenants who have the least protection, the least sophistication, these are the ones who they don't know what rights they do have. They don't know what they are. They don't know how to raise them. And so as a result, we're seeing that people who are sophisticated and educated maybe don't get evicted, but the people who are most susceptible are constantly getting evicted.
Appreciate that. Absolutely.
Gene,
You please.
sorry, I have to counter, of course.
Of course.
And far be it for me to get into a debate with Serge. I know he does a lot of work in this, but I've represented some tenants, and in my experience with representing a lot of those tenants is not that they're particularly savvy with their process. They don't really understand what their rights are. Yeah. And many of them are struggling themselves to get things done. It took one particular case in Santa Fe, it took us over 1.5 years to get somebody who had stopped paying rent altogether completely out of the unit, and they just failed to pay rent. By the time they were actually evicted, they had caused so much damage that it's basically not rentable anymore. My client ended up having his own home foreclosed upon because he couldn't cover the mortgage on the unit and the mortgage on his home, and he ended up having to face staying at a hotel until he actually, and it was not a nice hotel, a motel, to get this gentleman out of his unit. When he finally did and he went back in, he had to live in that unit because he had no other options. So I think that there are certainly I think, examples of bad landlord, bad behavior, but there's also situations where, you know, on both sides, where you have a working poor and a landlord that isn't necessarily a slumlord, but they're really just looking to try to, you know, get ahead of where they are, and they're in a critical position as well. In
That's
many
fair.
cases.
That's a fair point there. Do you want to make a?
That sounds like a worst-case scenario, and I think that on the other side, you think of people that their alternative is to live in their car. And this whole discussion really should be related to homelessness
That's a good
and
point.
our problem in Albuquerque, which is growing homelessness.
That's right. We're gonna take that on, as well as Serge. I appreciate again all that you've brought to us about evictions. We're gonna take a cut at this as well in a future show, because it's a big issue for us here in New Mexico. That's all the time we have. Thanks for watching.